Okay, in this video we're going to go over how to solve systems of equations. We're going to talk about finding the equation of a perpendicular bisector, and then we're going to go over one question on that things you need to know worksheet for chapter 3. So this is on page, this is in section 3.4. I'm not sure what page this is out of your book, but they want you to solve for x and y, and we did 15 in class, so we should be able to do this one, and 12 and 13 are a little bit easier. 14, we have two perpendicular lines, and we have 2x plus y, and then 10x minus 4y over here. And so what a lot of students do is they say 2x plus y equals 10x minus 4y, but you need two equations. So rather than setting them equal to each other, since this is a right angle, this one has to be a right angle because they're a linear pair, and they add up to 90 degrees, or 180, so this one has to equal 90. And then this one also has to equal 90 degrees since these are vertical angles. So 10x minus 4y equals 90 as well. Now that you have two equations, you can decide which variable you want to kill off. I'm going to get rid of the y first, so that means I'm going to multiply the top equation by 4. So now I have 8x plus 4y equals 360, and this bottom one didn't change, so 10x minus 4y equals 90. And then I'm going to eliminate. So I'm going to add 8 plus 10x is going to be 18x. These kill off. And 360 plus 90 is 450. And when you divide by 18, you get x equals 25. Now that you have x equals 25, to find y, you go back to the original equations and you plug it into any one. It doesn't matter. I think this equation is a little bit easier. So if I plug in 25 for x, I now have 2 times 25 plus y equals 90. And 2 times 25 is 50. And then if you subtract 50 from both sides, you're going to get y equals 40. So that's how you solve systems of equations. I promise you there will be one question where you have to use elimination to solve. And so again, the hardest part for people usually is coming up with the equations. So 3.4 has some good sections, as well as I think 3.2 or 3.3. They have some good problems at the back of those sections. So that's one thing you need to know how to do. In 3-6, I'm going to skip pages a little bit. 3-6, we started talking about perpendicular bisectors and create writing lines of equations. So I want to talk about perpendicular bisectors. That's the hardest type of question I could ask you. Let me go down one more. Okay. Perpendicular, again, means that they meet at 90-degree angles. So I'm going to do, I'll do number 50 with you guys. So it says write the equation of a perpendicular bisector of the segment with given endpoints. So that means this isn't going to be an endpoint. Like -3, 2 is like here, and -3, -10 is here. Okay, so if you graphed it, this is what it would look like. Perpendicular means it's going to hit it at 90 degrees, and bisector means it's going to cut it exactly in half. So I need to find the equation of this black line that cuts this red line exactly in half. Okay, first thing you need to do is find the slope. You need to find the slope of the original red line and the slope, the perpendicular slope. So to find slope, that's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If you guys wanted to graph these and count, it might be easier to do because when you have the y's and you subtract it, you have 2 minus -10. And for the x's, you subtract those 2. So -3 minus -3. Now remember, 2 negatives make a positive. So you're actually going to come up with 12 over 0, which doesn't make sense, right? Well, if we look at our graph, that's because it's a completely vertical line. Yeah, so the slope is 0. The opposite of a vertical line is a horizontal line. So that means I need to, oh, sorry, I don't know why I put 0, sorry. Slope is undefined. So the opposite of an undefined slope is a 0 slope. So that means that this black line has to have a slope of 0. Okay, so this is our slope. So then the slope of the perpendicular line has to be just a 0. Now that we have the slope, the second thing you need to do is find the midpoint, because the word bisector means it's going to hit at the midpoint. So the midpoint is exactly in the middle. So what number is exactly in the middle of -3 and -3? That's -3. That makes sense that it has to be on this line somewhere. What point's exactly in the middle of 2 and -10? Well, if I add those up, 2 plus the -10 and divide it by 2, I would get negative 8 divided by 2, so I would get negative 4. So that means that that midpoint is going to be at negative 3, negative 4. So I'm going to erase some of this so I have more room. I now know that my slope is 0, and I know that my midpoint, that point that it goes through, is negative 3, negative 4. And if you want to, the last thing you're going to need to do is plug it into y equals mx plus b. Okay, so I know my slope is 0, I know my x is negative 3, I know my y is negative 4, and I don't know what b is, so I'm going to have to solve. Well, 0 times negative 3 is 0, so I have b equals negative 4. And some people finish there. We're not done. Y equals m is 0 plus b. And you don't really have to even write this part. Your answer would be y equals negative 4, which makes sense since it's a negative line. I'm sorry, horizontal line. Okay, last thing we want to do, there might be a question about perpendicular bisectors on your test. I probably will save it till later on in the year. Last thing I want to talk about is on that things you need to know worksheet I emailed out. These are just questions. You can find these questions in the book. They're not anything special by any means, but they're a bit rigorous, and I like that. 25, I like 25. It says find the measure of angle Q, and it gives you two parallel lines. I'm going to highlight those for you. This one's parallel and this one's parallel, and it's giving you two different transversals. So when we have two different transversals, we need to look at it only one transversal at a time. So I'm going to look at this red transversal first, because I know that this angle is 50. So that means I know that this angle is 50 because they're vertical angles. Now, if I look at this red line and this parallel line, I know that these two angles are same side interior angles. So that means that they're supplementary. So that means this whole red angle has to be 130 degrees. Now, if this part is 70 degrees and the whole thing is 130 degrees, that means that the leftover has to be 50 degrees. Oh wait, no, 60 degrees. I did my math wrong. So if this angle is 60 degrees, that means that this angle has to be 60 degrees. So your answer is going to be 60 degrees. There's some good questions on here. I emailed the answers as well. If you have any questions, there's tutoring Wednesday at lunch and Thursday morning.